I'm always interested in sort of what's the next move or growing into like my higher self. We're all humans, we're all evolving all the time. And I think it's also really, while we're moving, sometimes it's hard to let yourself reflect and make yourself more open to move forward and to become that next version of yourself, or that better version, or that version you're meant to be.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denise Tova, and I have an extraordinary guest doing extraordinary work. She had spent nearly 20 years, that's incredible, doing something that many practitioners, many attorneys simply will not touch. She fights for children, she fights for families, including some of the most vulnerable kids in the New York court system. Liza Camellerie is a family law attorney and one of New York's leading practitioners in child abuse and neglect matters. And wow, that's a pretty heavy stuff. And I am, as you know, the point of the podcast is to go beyond titles and find out, who people are outside of what they do. So I am thrilled to get to know Liza and her story. So welcome, Liza, to the show.
Thank you, Denise, for having me.
Yeah, it's a fascinating work that you do. But before we get there, I always like to start with just a story. I don't want to start with a law. So tell me about you and the little girl. What were you into as a little girl, and how that connects to what you do today?
Oh God, that's a really loaded question.
I bet.
Well, what was I like as a little kid? I think I probably was very similar to how I am now, in that I think I was probably pretty precocious and a talker, and an empath. And, my parents went through a very acrimonious divorce when I was probably five and a half, something like that. And, I think in recent years, I've come to see how that's really shaped my career path and working with kids, working, in high conflict custody areas. And, I was this kid that was like, really sort of thrown into chaos, I think, from an early age. And luckily, because I was a resilient kid, I was able to come through. We all don't make it through life unscathed, God knows, and we all have our issues. But I think because I was a kid who had the resources internally to be able to make it through some of the chaos and the conflict of growing up in my family. I did relatively come out okay, and has been able to draw on the things that I've learned in my own personal life and as a young kid to inform my work.
Yeah, that's a very early in life experience. Do you remember some of the moments back when you were 5 years old? Do you still remember it pretty vividly?
I do. It's interesting. My brother, who's a little bit younger than me, a couple of years younger, who probably was like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 at the time. He has crazy vivid memories, when he was little. He tells me, he remembers laying in his crib, at night. And my memories are scant around that age and even through my childhood. But I do have some vivid memories of, experiences, both positive and negative, throughout my childhood, and some, obviously involving the conflict between my parents and the difficulty I faced as a kid trying to process, and a young kid too, right? Not an old kid,
Yeah.
a young kid processing, this split and what that meant and what a whole, living in two separate homes and what was that like? And, that was, in the I don't know, the late 80s, early, something like that, and where there wasn't a lot of kids, who had divorced parents. And so that was, it was very unique. And I think in some ways a little bit, kids are mean, right? Kids can be mean.
Yeah.
We all know
Yeah.
this. And I think a little stigmatizing. And so, I think that really was formative for me as well.
So how did you continue, then on the educational path? What was there, there was the experience of that early on, and then the co-parenting. When did you make that decision to actually go to law school and become a lawyer?
I think again, like many lawyers, it was kind of that I don't know what to do with myself. Maybe I'll go to law school.
That's fair. Yeah.
It wasn't, I always, so, throughout college and high school, I always volunteered. I always volunteered with like women and family causes. I worked for NARAL. I worked for Planned Parenthood. I worked for I did some crazy internship at the National Organization for Women. Um, I was really interested in that area, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I never had some passion for the law, right? I never
Mm.
was like, oh, this is my calling.
Yeah.
But I was that history major that knew that I liked social justice, and so what do you do with that? I guess you go to law school. So I really fell, fell into it in a lot of ways.
And then, so that alone, um, it the I was just really fascinated by is that you're not just practicing just divorce is obviously very difficult to transition
Hmm.
as it is on the children, certainly as well, who are stuck in the middle, and there's that fear of unknown and all that, and so sort of a shepherding, clients through that process, as difficult as it is. But you represent children, right, in custody, and I mean that is a whole new level of um, emotion and just sort of being exposed to it. How did you get in that field particularly? That's tough to do.
Yeah. So I started out my career, um, oh gosh, so long ago now, it's just scary. But I
You're
was,
not that old. You're not 60 years old.
I'm getting there. Um, so
Just to be clear.
I started out in the South Bronx, as an ACS attorney when I was like 24 years old or 20, something crazier. Uh, and, um,
Wow.
and again, something I just fell into, and kind of worked my way up the ranks there and became a supervisor um, and it ended up being like their abuse specialist and specializing in fatalities and abuse cases. And I mean, like, sounds so perverse to say, and this is obviously not the right word for it. I was going to say it, I enjoyed it, right? I
Yeah.
guess I found it really rewarding and really fulfilling, both on almost an intellectual level, because I thought the law around it was very compelling. And then obviously I thought the subject matter was compelling because um, here you are, helping or hoping to help
Mm.
kids who really have seen the worst of it. And and so that really resonated with me. Um, and that sort of began my journey about, working with kids, at least. And, as an ACS attorney, you're not representing the kids, you're representing the city of New York. But, I felt like I felt like it was like kid adjacent, I suppose.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it was interesting. But then I transitioned to working, doing AFC work, and that is what really resonated with me, in Manhattan Family Court, and was doing primarily, on abuse and neglect cases, also on custodies, family offense petitions. And it was important. It was important work. I felt like it was.
Yeah.
It sounds very corny, but a little bit of my calling, because, and I didn't realize it at the time, like in my early 30s, but a decade later, I see that because it, on a personal level, it really resonated with me. And now I have a lot of different views, and they're like very political and polarizing about ACS, and I won't get into it. I don't know. This is not really the forum for it, but and the work I did there, and I have a lot of different mixed emotions and ambivalence about it, because now I see, as a mom and myself, I see sort of how the system, especially the family court system, there's a lot of racial and social and economic issues at play, that are not necessarily just. I'll leave it at that. So, but it really always has resonated with me. And then, actually, and I feel like I'm just going on and on and on and on.
No, go ahead.
I ended up in private practice because I had a case with Nina Gross, and it was oh gosh, she represented a grandparent on a custody matter, and I think it was the AFC on the case, and she said to me, would you ever want to come work at a matrimonial firm? And I was like, huh. It would be nice to make a little more money.
Yeah.
So, I gave it some thought, and we sort of went our separate ways. And a couple of months later, I'm on a treadmill at Barry's Bootcamp, huffing and puffing away. And I look over next to me, and who's on the treadmill next to me but Nina Gross.
Oh my God.
And I was like, hey, Nina. And sort of the rest was history. And that was that was like 10, 11 years ago. Oh gosh, more than that. So, that's how I ended up in private practice. But still tried to manage to keep part of that, part of the, hybrid of my work, where I'm still working with kids when I can.
That probably was your calling. It's probably a piece of that girl. One thing that fascinates me, I started asking my guests, and if you were to take yourself back to a younger age, not quite 5, but maybe as far as you remember, 9, 10, and if there was a moment that felt, if you can even sort of at that age, maybe it didn't feel powerful, but you just felt like, hey, I'm feeling good about what I'm doing. Maybe it's a moment, like for me, it was like pretending I was a teacher, and sort of stuck with me. And so if you could connect something, an experience or feeling around that age, and then what you're doing now, do you feel like you are in sort of alliance, or in alignment, I should say, between the two?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to honor that kid, many years ago, who felt really helpless in a lot of ways, to have a voice in what was happening around her, and to have somebody that could advocate for her. And so I think that that's really, I'm trying to connect, that piece of me with the kids that I work with now. And I'm telling, that young girl is telling me, like, this is, you're gonna help these kids, right? And listen, helping kids looks like a lot of different things, um, and sometimes you don't help them, and you want to, and you try, and you have the best intentions, and sometimes you can't. But that's like, whether or not you're representing kids or you're representing a parent, right? Most of my
Right.
practice is now representing parents, like most of us, and you want the right outcome for your clients, and sometimes it doesn't happen, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
So stepping outside of work, although it's obviously part of you, it's part of me, but just what do you enjoy doing with your son or on your own to sort of reset, re-energize?
I think, like you, I'm a big, big exerciser. I'm like constantly running or taking some, like, whatever the class du jour is. And in New York, there's always like some sort of boutique studio fitness nonsense that I'm like, it comes up on my Instagram algorithm, and I'm like, oh
Let's
God, I
go.
gotta take that. That's gonna change my life. But so I enjoy doing that. It's a good stress release for me. I'm a big reader.
Hmm.
But and then with my son, I mean, he's my bud. I mean, we like to bop around and beach, pool, all of those things during the summer, and then we have a really nice community where we live, and I have a lot of good mom friends, and he's got a crew from school, and we try and do a lot of play dates and birthday parties and t-ball games, and he's 5, so it's that whole circuit. But it's good. It's really good.
Wow, there is. I'm wondering, and not to put words and thoughts out there, but how is it for you when you're not moving? And I don't mean physically, like not exercising, just basically when you sit in a quiet, what is that like for you?
What is not moving?
When you're
I know not what you speak
yes, yes. Yeah.
of.
Yeah, like if it's completely quiet, what
I
is yeah.
Denisa, I could not even begin to tell you what it means, what quiet is, or sitting alone. What I that is like, I strive to get there. No,
Yeah.
you know what? It's so crazy. I know. I feel like I think I've told you this. I think I'm a single mom by
Yeah.
choice. So it's just me. My mom helps a lot. I shouldn't say that. My mom is extremely helpful. But it's just me and my son, Will, who's 5, who's awesome. And, yeah, it's nutty. It's just nutty.
Yes.
Um, which is not to say it's not wonderful so much of the time, because it really is. It's really wonderful, but it's tough, and I don't get that much downtime. And so I'm trying to think, what is it? Me in a quiet moment. Me in a quiet moment. I mean, honestly, like, just I I'm always interested in sort of what's the next move, or growing into, like, my higher self, or who I feel like we're all humans, we're all evolving all the time. And I think it's also really, while we're moving, sometimes it's hard to let yourself reflect and make yourself more open to move forward, and to become that next version of yourself, or that better version, or that version you're meant to be. And those quiet moments where you're able to, even if you're not thinking about anything, right? If you're not reflecting,
Right.
if you're not thinking, but you allow yourself to have that space in your head, and that like, and just sort of be, I find that that's when you really actually have moments of clarity, and or you have, you let sort of the juices simmer and figure out what's going on inside your head and your heart and your soul to move you forward. And those moments are really few and far between for me right now with a little kid and a full-time job. And uh, but I do, if I do get them, I try not to actually direct myself. I try and just let myself be, and which is actually really hard to do because we are all of our thoughts are going a million miles a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But the running to-do list. But in my heart of hearts, like that's what I will hope that I can have those moments where I can just sort of be.
So what you said about um, having a moment space and the quiet moment, I can connect with that. I think I had to evolve from um, being able to just to stop and allow myself to have the quiet moment because I was on a go purposely keeping myself busy, but it was distracted.
Hmm.
While I enjoyed all these activities, or I thought I did, I realized that I was running away from feeling the pain from my past. Pain from a loss. I lost my son several years ago, and then just had a part of my childhood was sort of turbulent, and I didn't allow myself to really feel it, and I was running away from it. And then there are moments when I finally realized you just stop and feel it, and it was very cathartic. It was really rewarding. So I'm no longer. I had to evolve to the fact I'm no longer afraid to stop and feel and hear sort of that silence, if you will. Although I really don't now because there's so much of creating that I enjoy doing, and it's enjoyable as opposed to it came from fear.
Yeah, it is. I think it's for a lot of us. It's you know I don't mean to turn this into a therapy session, but
Yeah, no, this
but
is
no, but
great.
I think I think for a lot of us it's very hard to sit with your own thoughts, because you know I think they're twofold. Is that one, we live in a culture where the busier you are, it's like a it's you know it's a value, right? The
Yeah,
busier, the more overscheduled, the more quote unquote productive you are. It's a value judgment, right?
yeah,
So um, and that seems to be like the gold standard. And if you're not productive, or if you're letting yourself take time, if you're to physically and emotionally just recover and have moments to yourself or to your family, it's it's looked upon as it's what's wrong with you? That's weakness, right? You're not being
yeah.
productive at every moment, even though those times when you are off are productive, right? For a lot of different reasons. And then, and then also when you do to give yourself that time to not be busy, then what do you do? Then who are you, right?
Yes,
Then who are you? And when and the things that you keep yourself busy to prevent yourself from dealing with, whether it's something really mundane, like I don't want to clean the bathroom, to like I don't want to deal with loss or grief
right,
or pain.
right. Hmm.
It's almost like self-medicating, right?
Same, absolutely. It's the avoidance and pushing it down, pushing it, stuffing it down, or um, and at the same time, I think it's picking and choosing simply what you're enjoying, or just being intentional about what you do, and I think, spending time, with our kids too. It's just being in the moment. They force you to be in the moment. It's like, I
Yeah.
need your attention right now. And I think that's great. Are you into any shows?
Oh God, I'm like the most boring person in the whole entire world because what I'm about to tell you is really, really just gonna like the I don't know, the boring nail in the coffin heard round the world. So I am on season 7 of Call the Midwife, which is a BBC show.
Oh, no, no, you know what? No, I don't think that's boring. I love my BritBox,
Oh my
and
God, love it.
I watched it.
It's so good. And I
Yeah,
find it really soothing at night.
yeah.
But okay, so that I've been binge watching, but I'm watching that horrible but kind of awesome Ryan Murphy show about JFK Jr.
Oh, yeah.
And Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. So I'm watching that. I have like a list of shows that I want to watch that are coming out. But traditionally I've always nerded out on like, oh God, this is also really nerdy. Yes, apocalypse shows. So like, I binge watched like The Walking Dead, and then like Fear of the Walking Dead, and then like whatever Walking Dead spinoffs. And there's this show on. Every nerd in the world is like they're hearing their siren call. What is it? It's called The Last of Us, which is another
Oh, okay, yeah.
like I'm super into. But yeah, yeah, I like that storytelling. I find to me is actually really relaxing, and one of the most relaxing things is being pulled into a story, um, and taking yourself out of your life and being put into somebody else's world and life. I think that's so relaxing.
I don't think there's anything strange or boring actually about that. I've had done an interview. This was maybe over a year ago. It was one of the attorneys who said she's really into like a
Hmm.
uh, mystery reading, and a lot of sorcery, a lot of dragons, and and that sort of kingdom, because she's dealing with a really tough personal circumstances, and with a family member, and
Hmm.
it takes her, and even just like a day to day, what we do, you do, it just pulls her out and just transports you into a different world, and I think it's beautiful, to have that.
Yeah, it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be lost in a story. And those moments where you're reading a book and like it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're like, I gotta finish it. I gotta finish it.
yeah.
Those are really, they're mundane, but really also very special moments, I think.
It takes me closer to my grandfather. I was born and raised in Prague, Czech Republic, and he was into the Czech version, of like the crime novels. And so whenever I watch it, I like to watch crime shows, not the reenactment, but just, some sort of some mystery, murder mystery or something like that. Nothing overly gory, but whatever. It more of a you just dying to know what happens or who did
Yeah.
it. And I find myself strangely, oh yeah, people getting hacked and stabbed, but I find it strangely comforting because it takes me closer to my grandfather. But it really does. It's
No,
not so much about what you watch or what you do. It's kind of like what it represents. So I get that. That's
no,
so
that makes a
cool.
lot of sense too.
Yeah. Wow.
It's connecting, right? And that's what storytelling
Yes.
is. It's connection. It's connection with humanity, right? That's what are the
Yeah.
arts, right? So, and I would definitely argue that film and television is part of the arts.
Hey, and for other people, there's another practitioner who's like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing, but you know what? It's like a mind floss watching The Housewives, and
Who doesn't
because
love the Housewives?
I know it's like somebody else's conflict, right? Just let's watch it. Yeah, exactly.
I'd love a Bravo show.
Yes, yes. You know what? I used to much more. Now it's like, oh gosh. I mean, you're a bunch of, it's like it's been on for so long. And it's like, okay, it's not holding my, even the sort of the attention, you really don't want attention, you just want something mindless. And
Mhm.
but yeah, that's so funny. You know, I'm really interested in and what when you look at attorneys who are coming into this field, maybe they have been practicing for a few years, maybe they're just coming in, kind of knowing what you know today, but also about yourself, like your own journey and what you evolved into. What would you share with them? Like really just directly and unfiltered advice, thoughts. If they came to you, said, I don't know if that's, what can I expect? How do you see it today?
I I mean, I think it's a hard practice. I think it's a hard practice in a lot of different ways. And I think you have to know how you want to practice, right? As a young attorney, and even, as you're going through your career, like, you know, there's an opportunity to fight all the time. And it's always there to to make to make it everything litigious, and to or there's an opportunity to be a problem solver.
Right.
And I think that, you have to evaluate what kind of person you are. Because listen, there's another, we all have to litigate, and we all have to be tough sometimes, and use our advocacy skills, um, in different ways. And, but if you have the choice in some instances to go down path A, which is, being overly aggressive and overly
Mhm.
litigious, versus going down path B, which is sitting down in a room and figuring out a solution with your adversary. I mean, which one do you want to pick? Who do you want to be? Because I think a lot of that will shape,
Mm.
who you are as a practitioner, how you'll approach your cases, how you will approach. I mean, and when you're a young attorney, you're not working on your own cases, right? You're working on
True.
the partners' cases, the people,
Yeah.
the people whose names are on the doors. And but it, if you come, I think if you come to the table with, a lens of, let's figure out, how to solve this versus let's figure out how to make, how to fight in the nastiest, dirtiest, most aggressive, most litigious way. It really, it shapes who you are as an attorney in for yourself. It shapes who you are to the outside world as an attorney. It shapes how you are as a person on the inside, right?
Yes.
How, like, the toxicity level that you have in internally, and then and then what you put out there in the world, right? What you're, you see some people walking down the hall in the courtroom, or the courthouse, and you're like, oh fuck, and then you see other
Yeah.
people, and you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna,
Yeah.
like, we'll fix this. This will resolve this,
Mm.
and you want to be, to me, right? And some people don't give a shit, like some,
Right.
and that's, oh, okay, that's to each his own. But to me, I want to be the person that somebody sees coming down the hallway, and they know, like, I could be tough if I need to be tough, but they're like, oh, it's Liza, like, we'll figure this out.
Mm. Practical.
Right.
Yeah.
Straight
Yeah.
shooter,
Super. Yeah.
practical. Like, I'm not,
Yeah.
you're not trying to sandbag anybody. You want to work it out. And if you can't work it out, you'll do what you need to do. And it's not personal, right? It's not, and
There you go.
you're not over identifying with your client, because God knows everyone makes bad choices. We wouldn't have a job if that wasn't
True.
So, listen,
Yes.
if I had a nickel for every bad choice I made, I've had girlfriends throughout my years that could attest to that. So, but
Yeah.
I think that
Good
that
point.
is my long-winded answer of what I would
No.
tell a younger attorney.
No, I mean, I could see them internally asking that because if you ask them, let's say during an interview, it would be like, oh, of course, I'm going to try and, be civil. And, but you're right. If you have that fighter in you and you get triggered, so easily, and you take a lot of stuff personally, you might want to do your own work before you launch yourself into this work because this is a career and people's lives are on the line, children and families. So, don't use them as a practice ground, for to resolve your own stuff unless you can. And I wonder about that because I heard some practitioners saying, well, I can compartmentalize. Yeah, well, I don't know.
So
I don't know
interesting.
that everybody can. Um,
I can't.
you can?
Oh no, I can't at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
yeah,
like riddled with secondary trauma from this job.
yeah. That's honest. Yeah. Just I think that's important. And then kind of knowing when is what. I asked about um actually no, we didn't talk about that, but as far as a trigger, I think for me, one thing is, okay, now I can name it and say, now I'm feeling triggered as I'm sitting there and I'm listening, but that doesn't mean I will act on it. It's noticing it. But if you're constantly acting on your triggers, it's like, you might want to choose a different job. You might go get a job first. So, but this has been really great. I am really grateful and thankful that you shared your story here, part of it. And I know we could continue, and we might do that. This has been really insightful, so thank you.
Over cocktails, I hope.
Many cocktails.
No,
No,
thanks
we,
for having me. No, I appreciate it. And it was nice to talk. I feel like I turned this into like let's hold hands and talk about
oh, you know what? Now, when you drop the F bomb, it was all over. No, seriously, this was honest. This was honest. It was great. This is nothing pre-rehearsed. And the great thing about this is that we I didn't know you. This is really our first well, we had a little bit of an interaction in your conference room, and that was very surfacey work related stuff. This is really great, and I know from this, probably done maybe over 100 of these, is that I know and I've heard is that every time practitioners are hearing someone else's story, they can relate to it or they go, wow, I did not know that.
Mhm.
And it softens them. They don't look at them as adversaries so much as, oh shit, I'm going through the same stuff. So we have more in common. So this is really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And to our viewers and listeners, to learn more about Liza and how to get a hold of her, make sure that you click on her bio link below. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube channel and follow Beyond the Bar podcast and our social media. And of course, until next week, stay curious and stay inspired.